Good morning, everyone. So Amy tells me I'm going to be timed, which makes me nervous. So I'm going to try not to look at the timer. So welcome everyone to the South Georgia Healthcare Summit. And so this is our first collaboration between Southern Georgia and Southwest Georgia. And we are beyond excited to see so many employers and partners here in the room with us. My counterpart, Melody Pierce, couldn't be with us today, but she wanted to make sure that I wished everybody well, and she's told me that she knew it was going to be a great event. So thank y'all for coming. When I looked in the room today, oh, see, April's telling me this. I'm trying not to dance. I couldn't believe how many faces that I could see when I walked in. And I don't know if I introduced myself. Did I introduce myself? Okay, let me introduce myself. I'm Roberta Lovett. I'm the Workforce Development Director for Southern Georgia. And back in 2016, if you let me go back just a little bit in time, we received a grant from, I'm not sure what it was, Brandon Technical College System of Georgia. Some agency gave us some money, and we got to work on what they called then the High Demand Career Initiative, which is our sector partnership. So I got to work, I thought. We were supposed to have a meeting in McRae, Georgia at Little Okmulgee State Park. And I sent a bunch of emails and I made a bunch of phone calls, and we got there that day and we walked in and I had 0 healthcare employers show up, none. We had some partners, which I was so appreciative, but I felt like a failure. I had somehow not engaged the people. Keep in mind, I didn't leave my office. That was a problem. So I'll tell you my mouse story. So I was kind of dejected. It just felt like, wow, I couldn't get anybody to come from healthcare. So everybody went out to dinner, and I said, no, I'm going to go back to my room. I don't know if you've ever been to Little Okmulgee State Park, but they need a little updating in those rooms. It was questionable, but it was fine. Turned on the ceiling fan. And I had Reese's Pieces snack mix for dinner. It was delicious. I laid down. I had it for the day. I was just, not feeling it. So a little bit later, I'm kind of half asleep, and I hear crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. And I think, what's that noise? And I was like, it's probably the ceiling fan doing something with the papers over there. And I kind of close my eyes again, and I hear crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. And I think, I don't think that's the ceiling fan. So I get my cell phone real quietly, and I turn on the flashlight, and I shine it over at the other bed, and there's a little mouse eating out of my little Reese's Pieces mix. And I looked, and I thought, I've had a terrible day. So I closed my eyes, and I said, dear God, let that little mouse stay in his bed, and I'll stay in mine. And he can enjoy that Reese's Pieces mix, because he's got to have a good day, because I didn't. So that's why I say wow, because after leaving there, we hired Amy Jones in January of 2017, and I say that's when the magic started to happen. We interviewed Amy, and she said she would come and be our business services coordinator. She was going to build our business services and do on-the-job training. Well, in those few weeks between the time I interviewed Amy and she came, I added a few things to her job description, just a few things. Like, oh, by the way, Amy, we have to build out a healthcare sector partnership, and we don't have any employers involved. Can you do that? And she, of course, said yes. So from 2017 until 2019, Amy worked and set up steering committees and got so many people engaged in the process. And we had our first healthcare summit here in 2019. Had about 105 attend, and it was great. Things were going well, and then a little thing came along known as the COVID-19 pandemic. And it kind of derailed us a little bit, but Amy didn't stop. She realized all of our healthcare providers were out there working probably triple the amount of time they normally did, but behind the scenes, Amy continued to work, and then she started to partner with our group in Southwest Georgia, and I stand before you today with 175 people registered to attend the event today, and I think that says a lot, the fact that we have partner agencies, post-secondary education, secondary education, Again, healthcare employers, thank you so much for coming. Me and the mouse appreciate it. And so finally, like I said, 175 registered to attend. We're all talking together. Employers across 2 different regions in Georgia talk to each other. We learn from each other and realize with the state that we're in right now, whatever we can do to fill those open positions because we need it. So let me say thank you to a few people. So Amy's probably embarrassed, and I have to add Jerry. I'm sorry, Jerry, I didn't have a good story about you, but Amy and Jerry have worked hours upon hours to get everything ready for the event. They want it to be successful. I know they were both here way before me this morning setting things up, so thank you, Amy and Jerry. I really appreciate it. Let me also thank Lisa Carhuff from Hometown Health. They sponsored our delicious breakfast out there this morning. We always appreciate food, always, so thank you so much. Thank you for everybody that contributed to the little goodie bags that we've given out. We appreciate everything that you gave to us. Thank you for attending again. And then finally, a huge thank you to the Technical College System of Georgia, the Office of Workforce Development. If they had not given us that first grant in 2015 or 2016 and continued to support and fund us, we wouldn't be here. So thank you so much. And on that note, it's probably way past my time. I'm going to introduce our next speaker. So Brandon Ona serves as the Business Services Director for the Technical College System of Georgia's Office of Workforce Development. In his role, he oversees the state of Georgia's implementation of federal workforce development programs for Georgia businesses and leads TCSG's business services and apprenticeship teams. Prior to joining TCSG, he led the integration of workforce and economic development for DeKalb County, as well as held multiple roles at the Georgia Department of Economic Development, within their international trade and workforce divisions. Brandon began his time in public service as an appointee to the White House's Office of Management and Budget, where he aided the president's regulatory, privacy, and economic policy agendas. Brandon holds a Bachelor's of Arts from the George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and so my friend Brandon.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Roberta, for that awesome introduction. A couple of weeks ago when they told me, I think this was last week when Amy sent the email, and they said, you're going to follow Roberta, she's going to welcome everyone. I'm like, okay, she's going to get everyone laughing, and then I will put them slightly to sleep. But I was very reassured when I came in this morning that there was coffee, and you guys look like you're ready to get the day started and to really roll up the sleeves and start this work. Again, to reiterate the point of thank you, I want to also thank the work of WorkSource Southern Georgia and WorkSource Southwest Georgia, and specifically not only Roberta and Amy, Melody, but also Amy and Jerry for the work that they do. On the local level, that's some of the hardest work in the world, bringing people together to solve some of these really tough issues. So for today, I wanted to give an overview of where we are as a state, talk about why we're here, and then lastly, give a little insight into what sector partnerships are, because that's a question that we always have. I have it probably all the time, and I have to remind myself. You've probably heard this for a while now, but when we look at where Georgia is, especially as TCSG, compared to the rest of the nation, Georgia's doing pretty good compared to the rest of the nation. As you all know, for nearly a decade, we've been ranked the #1 state in the country in which to do business by multiple industry publications. This is because of our diverse industry landscape, as well as our strong workforce in terms of its size and its skills. And emerging from the pandemic, it's no different. When we were keeping our eye close on how we were doing, things didn't look too great during the pandemic, but compared to the rest of the country, we were doing pretty well. Our overall job loss was a fraction of what the national average was and what a lot of our other states were, even in the surrounding areas. Today, when we look at our unemployment, it's record low. And then, of course, our economy has bounced back quite a bit to a point where we have record tax revenue coming in. Some would say it's going so well even to our own detriment, or they would argue. But the truth is that's not why we're here, and that's not why I have a job or why WorkSource Southwest is here and WorkSource Southern Georgia is here. The reason why we're here is not because of all the great things that are going on, but because there's so much more work left to do. One of my favorite quotes, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I would butcher it otherwise, was from Howard Schultz, and he formerly led Starbucks. And he said, even in times of great success, the problem is that it often overshadows the problems that are there. And as we know, and Roberta touched on, there's a lot of problems that we have right now, right? While we have a really large workforce, we still have a lot of job openings, and that could not be truer than in healthcare. Even though we have really great opportunities to skill our Georgians, we have the Hope Career Grant, the Hope Scholarship, not to mention all of the resources and services offered by the WorkSource Georgia network and all of our partners, we still have significant skills shortages. So that's why we're here, is to identify these problems and to solve these problems. So what is sector partnerships? Well, there's a statutory definition, and again, I'm trying to make sure that nobody falls asleep, so I won't go into that. But sector partnerships is a way to help solve these problems. At its core, it's what I often say, bringing the village together. Whether that be workforce partners, the WorkSource Georgia network, our technical colleges, our K-12 education system, but most importantly, like Roberta said, our employers and our job seekers in a room at the table to identify where to have an honest conversation of where we're at, what the problems are, what solutions we need, how we can create and develop these solutions, and then finally, the most important part, how do we act on these solutions? So, we're not going to get all of that done today. Hopefully we're going to get some of it done. But if we're trying to get all of that done, we'll be here for quite some time, and UGA would probably kick us out of this room. But what I would say to that is to think about two things. Think about the start and the end of that process. Specifically the end, the actions. What are the actions that we can take? And then the start, what's the vision? What are we, when we're looking at the healthcare industry here in South Georgia, what does it look like? What are we working towards? It's going to help us not only focus on what we're trying to achieve, but it's going to help bring more people to this conversation and move the needle. So with that, think about how we can serve the healthcare industry as workforce partners, and if you're an employer in the healthcare industry, how we can serve you. That way the healthcare industry can best serve the state, the region, and of course the communities that we have here that we all represent. So with that, I'm very excited about today and all the work that we're going to accomplish. Like Roberta said, sector partnerships is always a key component of the work that we do through the workforce or through WorkSource Georgia, so much so that every time we convene our state board, which has members of the business community, the number one thing they always ask about is sector partnerships. And this past year alone, we invested $2.7 million into this work throughout the state, and we hope to continue that investment for years to come. But all of that comes down to this moment in this room right here. So thank you all for having me and for the invitation, and I look forward to what we achieve today.
Thank you, Brandon and Roberta. Amy, I think we pretty much covered it.
Yeah. The only thing, I'm Amy Jones.
I'm Jared Chapman.
So we represent WorkSource Southern and WorkSource Southwest. I want to ask, how many people were here during our November 2019 summit? Excellent. Well, that's great. Thank you for coming back. And if you didn't raise your hand, that means you're new. So that means we've made new connections, and we're really happy that you could be here and be part of this work. I want to point out the banners, because I know you've heard Roberta talk about it and you heard Brandon talk about the sector partnerships. To me, what these banners represent is our sector partnership. We're bringing together employers, who actually sit at the table and talk to each other. We're bringing together the community partners who can help them. We're bringing the K through 12 and post-secondary to find out what skills are missing and how we can increase that pathway into healthcare. So our goal is to really bring a spotlight on South Georgia. Keep kids here, have them go to school here, have them find jobs here, and really let them know that South Georgia is a great place to work, a great place to be, and we're working on increasing that pathway. We're here to help you. So I'm going to let Jerry say a few words, and then we'll introduce our next speaker.
Yeah, we've got a full menu today, so I just want to thank all of those that contributed to the goodie bag. Some pretty good swag in there, so I appreciate that. So let's just let them get going.
Okay, so if you are on our first panel, which is going to be Ms. Karen Williams, Robin Rao, Paige Wynn, and Angela Ammons, if you want to come up on this side, we'll go ahead and sit up here. And I'll do an introduction of our next speaker, Ms. Denise Carnegie, and she's going to talk for a little bit about the healthcare workforce, and then she'll be our moderator. So Ms. Carnegie is the Executive Director of the Georgia Statewide Area Health Education Center Network. She earned her bachelor's degree at Carson Newman College in Jefferson City, Tennessee. She went on to earn a master's degree at the University of Georgia. She currently holds faculty appointments at the Medical College of Georgia and Mercer University School of Medicine. She holds many professional appointments. I won't go through all of them because there is a very long list. She's very versed in healthcare. And she was named the Social Worker of the Year by the Georgia chapter of the National Association of Social Workers. She's also an alumni of Leadership Georgia and named Macon Telegraph's one of the 20 future leaders of Middle Georgia. So I want to go ahead and introduce Ms. Carnegie, and we have our next panel. I'm excited to hear what you have to say, and they're going to introduce themselves quickly, and we'll get into the questions, but then we're going to do some question and answer for the audience. So get ready with your questions. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm trying to figure out if I'm supposed to let our panelists introduce themselves first, and I think I will, just so that y'all don't wonder who all these folks are. So Robin, why don't you start?
Okay. So my name's Robin Rao, and I'm the CEO of the Hospital Authority of Miller County. Thank you. I was wondering how my voice was going to carry, although it does pretty well on its own. So my name's Robin Rao. I'm the CEO of the Hospital Authority of Miller County, which consists of a 25-bed critical access hospital in Colquitt, Georgia, a 157-bed, highly skilled, the highest skilled facility in the state, skilled nursing facility, got 100 ventilator patients in that facility. A couple of rural health clinics, one of them in Miller County, one of them in Calhoun County. We do a lot of outreach, have an ACO, populations are engaged, and things of that nature. We've got about 700 employees in total from a facility 13 years ago that was just about closed. I'm originally from Rhode Island, in case you guys couldn't tell.
That's Southern Rhode Island, right?
Just what I get that out of the way, right away. Originally from Rhode Island, I have done healthcare administration since my graduate degree in one form or another, including for Fortune 500 company mergers and acquisitions. So I've done for-profit, not-for-profit, and this is my last pit stop before I take myself back to
So, unlike Robin, I very much have a Southern accent, so I'm from here. I'm the CEO at Georgia Medical Center, and I'm the CEO at Irwin County Hospital. I've been in the healthcare business for about 30 years. We've got our hospital over in Fitzgerald is licensed for 75 beds. We have a jury site unit, it's a 12-bed unit there. We've got a couple of rural health clinics and several outline physician office practices. We employ about 260 employees at that facility. We've got a lot going on, and it definitely needs in the workforce that are unmet right now. At Irwin County, that is a 34-bed hospital. It's not critical access, it's an acute care PPS hospital. That has a 30-bed nursing home attached to it. And we've got several physician offices outlined in the county and the neighboring counties around. We employ about 174 people in that facility. And also have needs that are unmet there for the workforce, especially during the COVID. But like I said, I've been in healthcare for 30 plus years. I've dabbled a little in the school education sector as far as I'm on the school board. Sometimes that's yeah. And I'll leave it at that. But thank you for having me today.
Excuse me, if the panel could hold the mics a little bit closer, it's kind of hard to hear back here in the back.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Karen Williams. I'm with Memorial Hospital and Manor down in Bainbridge. I'm a little corner in the tri-state area. We are an 80-bed acute care facility. We have an attached 107-bed long-term care facility, and then we have some specialty clinics and an assisted living facility. It's a wonderful community. We have great community partners there, including our school board, as well as our chamber. And as you see by our poster, we put care in health care. So we love you kids to visit sometime.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Angela Ammons, and I'm the CEO of Clinch Memorial Hospital, and it is a critical access hospital in Huntsville, Georgia, South Georgia. It is my first CEO role, and I am a registered nurse by trade, critical care nurse for several years before I accepted this role. We have about 150 employees. We've grown from when I started 5 years ago from 90 to 150, and we're very proud that we are able to employ that many people. We have a thriving swing bed program. We serve several counties in our area and beyond the state lines, and we have employed our own physician in the last 3 years, which was quite a challenge for us in rural Georgia, and we are on the cusp of opening our second family practice within Clinch County. So we're very excited about that. Very excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you all. I was told that I was going to be moderating a powerhouse panel, so I just want y'all to know, not to set an expectation or anything, but y'all are a powerhouse. So again, thank you so much for letting me be here. Amy doesn't know this, I don't think, but my mom is from Trumbull County, from Folkestone, Georgia. We used to call her Swamp Woman when we were there. And so rural healthcare is not just my business, it's my family, and so I care very much about this. What I'd like to do is take a few minutes and try to set a stage for you, sort of saying things that you probably already know, but maybe pointing out some things you haven't thought about. So the first thing is, what is the healthcare workforce? You know, we know it's the doctors and the nurses and the dentists and the pharmacists, but it's also coders, it's also the administrators, it's also the supply chain. It's not just the clinicians in the healthcare system that are healthcare workers, and we are having shortages across the board. There are a lot of issues in healthcare, as you know. One is evolving illnesses, as we've just learned in the past couple of years. Our aging population, of which I now reluctantly am one. And then also the disbalance between our needs and our supply. So we have lots of things going on broadly. But there's also more. There's challenges in every workforce and in every workplace, but the healthcare workforce has some unique challenges. Forbes, in fact, did a study recently of 1,000 healthcare workers and asked them what were the recurring issues that compromised their job satisfaction. And so some of you may have heard these, but the issues that they identified were no advancement opportunities, staff shortages, lack of mentoring, poor organizational culture, lack of training or professional development, not enough time with patients, burnout, changing payment trends, low salary, work overload, and that was including being under-resourced, high turnover rates, lack of technological resources and outdated systems, school loan debt, bad work hours, and compliance with government requirements. So then Forbes went back and said, okay, of those 15 things, what would you rank as the 3 biggest ones? The first one was work overload. The second was no advancement opportunities, and the third was burnout. So I think that tells you a little bit about our workforce and the struggles that we're having. Now, COVID changed health workforce planning, supply, demand, reimbursement, everything else. Some of the things that I would point out, hospital nurse staffing demands increased by 245%, or 50,000 nurses from September of 2020 to December of 2020. And if you remember, that was in the height of the pandemic. Nurses have been leaving the hospital workforce at record rates. Job vacancies for various types of nursing personnel increased by up to 30% between 2019 and 2020. Increased demand for nurses coupled with shortened supply of nurses has forced hospitals to contract with traveling nurses and other contract labor firms. Hospitals' use of contract temporary labor is up over 130% nationally. Contracting with these firms, many of which are private equity backed, is expensive and has increased the hospital expenses of 17% above pre-pandemic levels, according to the AHA. So despite the increasing demand for healthcare services, hospital employment data indicate a critical shortage of staff necessary to meet that demand. While hospitals have worked to ramp up staffing, they have not regained all the staff they need. Since February 2020, hospital employment has decreased by nearly 94,000, including a decrease of over 8,000 between August 2021 and September 2021. Job vacancies for various types of nursing personnel increased by up to 30% between 2019 and 2020. There was also a 31% increase in job vacancies for respiratory therapists who were critical in the COVID fight. Staff turnover due to COVID-19 pressures has increased from 18% to 30% for hospital departments, especially emergency intensive care units and nursing. These pressures are expected to persist. An analysis of data found that there will be a critical shortage of 3.2 million healthcare workers by 2026. So the critical staffing shortage of healthcare workers has forced hospitals to incur increasing costs. And if you look at this, if you look at the trends just between 2019 and 2021, hospitals have experienced a 15.6% increase in labor expenses and a 15.4% increase in contracted labor expenses. So all of this talks about recruitment. How do we get people in health careers, and then how do we keep people in health careers? So we know that the competition for primary care right now is fierce. And now that the private sector, like Walmart and CVS and WebMD, they're trying to set up these clinics everywhere, that's increasing the competition for these primary care providers. We do know that the demand is going to continue to increase. It was increasing pre-pandemic. We were already short before the pandemic, and now it's crisis. There's also a change in mental health policy. We're looking at how many people in the healthcare workforce have been impacted by mental health issues relative to the pandemic and the pressures. One of my soapboxes, which my colleagues Laura Calhoun and Jay Nestor will tell you, is we have spent so much money creating a resilient workforce. I think we need to invest equal dollars in creating workforces that don't require so much resilience to endure. And I hope you would take up that call. So we know that there's a new mental health 999 coming out in the spring. That is a result of the pandemic. We now have access to emergency mental health services in this country. But again, that has to be staffed. And if we think primary care is a shortage area, look at the mental health workforce. So just some quick and dirty things about the counties in your workforce regions down here. 7 counties in the 2 areas have no physician assistants. An additional 7 only have 1. 4 counties have no dentist. 6 counties have only 1. 2 counties have no physicians, but 9 counties have no internal medicine physicians, 14 had no pediatricians, and 18 had no OBGYNs. According to the Saliga AHEC and a survey they did, healthcare firms employ over 40,000 individuals in Southwest Georgia. The majority of healthcare job openings in the region are for nurses. Our healthcare projections for Southeast and Southwest Georgia track those of the state, but are compounded because it's harder to recruit people south of the Main Line, as we say. Over the past decade, the number of nursing-related graduates in South Georgia has remained stable, but the demand has quadrupled. So the current stability of that is not necessarily something to celebrate. Healthcare employers in Southwest Georgia reported 780 open positions in late 2019 and early 2020, and over 60% of those were for registered nurses. So hopefully I have set a table for you to talk about as an employer how you deal with some of these issues. What I'm going to do is ask a series of questions of our panelists and give them time to respond, and then we will open it up to the floor. And I'm going to start, let me find my correct list here, with Paige. So Paige, what advice can you give to prepare students for interview questions? And what do you find to be the hardest question to answer?
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to give kudos to you for outlaying you did a great job in setting the stage for what we're facing. And being in rural areas, it's even harder to recruit those people. So the best chance we've got is partnering with our local school systems and keeping those folks at home. But as far as preparing for interviews, I always kind of think back, if you're new and you're coming into the field, we have a vast array of jobs that so it may be anywhere from a dishwasher to an RN or a mid-level unit we need. So you've got different levels of experience coming in. But for those new that are coming in, I mean, we don't expect them to know everything about the job. We don't expect them to have a whole lot of experience and to know how to answer, this is how we will come in and do. But what I like to see is what have you accomplished. Talk about what you could bring to the table to offer as an asset. Whether you're conscientious or you're energetic. And that's probably very important nowadays, is being energetic, because our staff is overworked and they are burned out, and there are multiple jobs now that people are having to take on because of the shortage. And I think by being able to portray yourself as someone that wants to get out there and wants to work and isn't scared of work, then that goes a long way. I always think the hardest question for me to answer is, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Sometimes it's hard to brag on yourself, but you need to, and tell what you're able to get out there and do, what you've accomplished, even if it's just high school, what you've accomplished in high school. And your weaknesses that nobody likes to talk about, but that gives you an opportunity to say, I really need some mentorship.
I try to turn it into a positive. I have growth areas that I'd like to explore.
Exactly. And we never mind. We like to partner with our education systems. We never mind. We've got advise that anything that was not interviewed, we're happy to sit down with anyone and go through things like that, or anything that can help.
Very nice. Does anybody else want to comment on that at all? Okay. Our next question is for Angela. What changes were made in recruitment efforts due to the pandemic?
Well, we have tried many things. We've also failed at many things over the last couple of years during the pandemic, but we try to create an environment where failure is okay as long as you learn from that lesson, and we can improve upon that. So we realized that we had a struggle ahead of us as being a rural hospital in South Georgia and Homerville, and as quaint as Homerville is, it's not as attractive as Valdosta hospitals and HCA and Emory and so forth. So we really had to be creative, and my HR director happens to be here today to help me figure out how we can draw people in. And one of the first decisions that we made after the initial height of the pandemic was over is that we continue to allow students to do their clinicals in our facility. We felt this was a great opportunity for us to interview students and for us to be interviewed, find out what was going wrong internally, to make people decide they didn't want to work with us. And we wouldn't know that unless we had several students, CNAs, respiratory therapists, and also registered nurses and LPNs come through and continue their clinicals during a pandemic. That is a prime opportunity to see the strengths and weaknesses, correct? So we continue to do that. And there are some very important jobs that was mentioned earlier. They're not registered nurse required or LPNs that are needed to continue to keep the doors open. Maintenance, security. We had a very hard time recruiting for those positions during the pandemic because no one wanted to work at a hospital that had a lot of COVID patients. So what we decided to do is partner with a local men's rehab facility called the Bridges of Hope. And it is a long-term rehab facility for those fighting addictions and needing help. And after a certain period of time, when you have been there and you've proven yourself, you can seek employment in the area. And of course, we had to alter our work schedules. They could only work certain days of the week. We had to provide them lunch. We had to pick them up, and they had to be back in time for curfew. But they only allowed us to pay a very low amount. They wouldn't allow us to pay the normal wages, and we have gotten a great workforce from that. So the pressure washing, the grass cutting, the gutter cleaning, the painting, and so forth has been accomplished by us partnering with the rehab facility. We also were hit with a large travel nursing cost, travel respiratory therapy costs, and it's a critical access hospital with a very, very slim margin. We just didn't know how we were going to survive. So Keith and I talked, and I said, why don't we direct contract with nurses? Why don't we post positions instead of using travel agencies, and we create our own 13 or 18-week contracts? And guys, you know that nurses and respiratory therapists are not getting the $150+ that we're paying these agencies. They're getting much smaller than that. So we decided to cut our costs in half, and we have offered direct contracts, and we filled almost every available position by doing that. And it's saved us money in our bottom line. And a lot of people said, well, what if your other staff hear about it? Well, they're more than welcome to apply, but guess what? Your PTO stops, your 403B contribution stop, and we are going to fill your position that you're leaving. So there's no guarantee at the end of your 13 weeks that your full-time position that you've had for the last 20 years will be there. So to keep them happy, we have tried alternative benefits for keeping the regular staff there. We partner with a company in Atlanta. We have fresh fruit and vegetables during the week that we give our staff. We have certain celebrations and so forth, and we tried some programs that didn't work out quite as well as we liked. Like Miller County, we gave away a car 2 years in a row for people who showed up to work. Their names were put in a lottery, and every 2 weeks, if you signed up on your time like an adult and you didn't call in and you didn't have unapproved overtime, your name was entered into a drawing and you won a brand new Ford Escape. So that did a lot to boost morale in our facility. The last thing that we tried, and it has been a slow process, but when you've exhausted every effort possible to hire locally or within your state and that doesn't work, we partnered with a company in the Philippines. And we started recruiting nurses from the Philippines, and we are receiving our second Filipino nurse on Monday. So we're very excited about that. So we've had to be very, very creative in our process.
Thank you. Karen, what do you think students need to be doing right now to prepare for the healthcare pathway?
Well, if I could just piggyback off of Angela, briefly. I am so glad to hear your and Paige's responses because it lets us know that we're doing things right. We're doing these exact same things. You mentioned the mock interviews. Our school system has a program that they just implemented. It's called WorkForce Now, where they have identified 36 students who do not plan to go to college but are going directly into the workforce after they graduate. And we're doing mock interviews with them. And hopefully we can grab some of those students for one of those 67 positions that we have open, one of those technical positions possibly in maintenance or dining. And also we're doing the same thing. We're utilizing immigrant workers from the Philippines. And let me just tell you, they're the best employees. They're dedicated, wonderful. So now, to talk about what students can do now to prepare a pathway, the first thing I recommend is that they speak with their counselor or their advisor so they can get on that healthcare track. Start taking STEM classes, science, engineering, science, technology, engineering, and math. Algebra, that's not the first thing you think of when you think about healthcare, but algebra is used in pharmacy. They should take biology, anatomy, so they learn about how the human body works. And then, of course, English, because it doesn't matter how much you know, if you can't communicate it effectively, it's no good. And then also cultivate their skills, their computer skills, work on interpersonal skills, things that you can't really learn in the classroom, like patience, how to handle constructive criticism. These are skills that you can build. And you can also study others, how they interact with others, and engage others to learn how they handle certain situations. And then interact with as many diverse personalities as you can. Also, join healthcare clubs like HOSA. Not sure if you're familiar with it, but HOSA is the Health Occupation Students of America. It's a program that the Department of Education designed for students to become familiar with healthcare opportunities. And then take advantage now of internships, shadowing opportunities, youth apprenticeships. I'm proud to announce that we are ahead of the game on that. We are on track with that. We have an awesome youth apprenticeship program that allows students to rotate through our facility like the clinicals. We allow clinical students as well. But the youth apprenticeship students have an opportunity to rotate through pretty much all of our departments, not just the clinical departments, but also HR, so that they grasp an understanding of healthcare truly is not just nursing and respiratory therapists and radiology. So that's working for us. And then finally, I think it doesn't hurt to have a mentor. Someone to mimic, someone who encourages you, who has the experience and who also has the education as well.
Thank you. All right, Robin, the last question that I'm going to pose to the group is to you, and it's about what are the barriers and challenges you face being a rural hospital? And you know, the timekeeper up here is not just for looks, y'all, because she keeps giving me the stink eye.
I bounced it. You got it.
Oh, aren't you just so gracious? So if you think about Wheeler County Hospital, I don't know if anybody has been there, Bainbridge Memorial is right down the street. We're great neighbors with one another. He's in a county of about 21,000 people, I think, somewhere around there, 19 to 21,000. His organization, in terms of the size of the beds, things of that nature, is very similar to ours. He's got a lot of industry in his community, and Bainbridge is a very progressive. Decatur County is a very progressive and aggressive county. The county that I live in is not quite the same as that. We're less than 6,000 people, we're probably about 58,000, and not progressive at all. I love the county, but it is like frozen in time. We've had some of the same opportunities that Bainbridge has, but our citizens have elected no. Okay, so fast forward to today. Still in net, we've been able to develop almost like the phoenix rising out of the desert. If you were to come and look and see what we've built, it is absolutely amazing, including a workforce of 700 people in a county of less than 6,000. So how did we do that? I think is really the question. You've got to look, in my mind, you have to look at what do people want today. You can't continue to do the same things. And by the way, everything that everybody else mentioned, we're doing that and more. We're all doing the same things, every one of us. And if we're not, then we're not doing our jobs to stay ahead of what's coming down the road. So for me, and my HR director is here, I will tell you that what I say to her and what I say to my managers, and I have said for the last 13 years, what I tell you about today is what I see for the future. And so be proactive and look ahead. Don't look at today. Don't look in your rearview mirror. You need to assess what do you think is coming down the road. And so who's coming down the road to us? Talking to our college students today, yes, we're a teaching program for every college, university, technical program, from radiology techs all the way up to medical students. What do people want today? They want beyond the work-life balance, quite frankly. They'd rather get a paycheck with little work. That's the world we live in today. The questions that they ask during an interview is, how much are you going to pay me? How much time do I get off? And by the way, I don't want to work nights or weekends. Well, that's the wrong industry, isn't it? If you're coming into healthcare, because I don't know about you, but my hospital never closes. The only thing that does close are our rural health clinics. And that seems to be a magnet for nurses that want to go in there. So trying to address what does the upcoming population want. Forget about, poor Carrie, she listens to me, kind of nag at her at least monthly. Forget about colleges. Look at high school and look at middle school and get yourself in there, because the culture that we're all watching today, listening to on the news today, that didn't happen yesterday or last year. It happened years ago, and we were all asleep at the wheel. That's why it's upon us today. So also look back and start inserting yourself into what young people not only want today, but what do we think they're going to want in the future, and offer it to them now. Start getting prepared today. So the last thing that we're doing right now, I mean, we have done all of these things, but it is about a work-life balance to young people. I turned 65 this year. Those are not the people that I'm recruiting. I'm recruiting young people like many of you who are in your childbearing years. You've got husbands or wives. You want to be able to enjoy some of that time. You want an excellent salary, but you may want to raise children. So, I mean, the one project that we're working on right now, which we were late to the 12th to do this. We looked at it 3 years ago. I didn't pull the trigger, but now we're building a 11,000 square foot daycare center for our employees, because that's what you want. Not what I want, obviously, but it is who are the people and what do they want. And so if you want to be, Jim and I can argue all day long, and we can fight each other all day long over salaries and benefits, but the winner is going to be the person who appeals to the young people.
I think you're a very shrewd woman.
It's what it is.
We also know data indicates that a lot of minority students make their career decisions by the time they're in the 4th grade. And so if you don't get there before the 4th grade, it's really hard. And if we're trying to build a workforce that's reflective of our populations, we need more diversity. We need more minorities. And so that's just a very shrewd observation.
Let me make one other comment, because we all work together. we may not agree with one another, but we all share common goals. You know, part of the problem that we're all also facing, we created it ourselves by answering salary expectations every time you turn around. And so we are driving that salary range up and up and up to the point where it is untenable.
Or unsustainable, that's for sure. All right, we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. And so I think Lisa and Jerry have microphones, and so if you'll just raise your hand, they'll bring you a microphone, and you can ask anything you want of our esteemed panel.
Hello, I'm Angela Williams, and I'm a healthcare science instructor. This is my first year. I'm enthusiastic. I have students who want to work in healthcare.
May God bless you.
But I'm looking for internship opportunities for them. What's the minimum age that you have for apprenticeships and internship opportunities?
Well, it's funny you should ask that question. I was in a meeting yesterday with some of the people in this room talking about the same thing. How can we marry together our high school and our hospital and getting workers in either through job shadowing or working, you know, where we actually give them a job. So 15 is what we're looking at. Now, there are things that, you know, if you, our local high school also offers the CTAE certification. With that, we can certainly put them to work in more areas and more exposure than just shadowing or not having a certificate. And then, you know, they can't touch a patient or do. But we're very excited about our partnership with Fitzgerald High School, and we're looking at kind of a three-pronged approach there. One where we partner with their lab and we kind of help, you know, we help them however we can with that, and then we provide job shadowing opportunities for their group of people, and then for some, you know, that meet certain requirements, we will bring them in to offer job, a paid position, and then some that qualify or the top echelon, potentially a full scholarship as they go to their college.
Can I say something to her? So one of the things, so if you ever want to come to Miller County, you come see me. So that's how I recruit. So years ago, I guess maybe 5 years ago, there's a college near us, Andrew College, which has typically been an agricultural college. And we created, partnered with them to create and continue to give them an endowment year after year. They created for us an RN program. And then behind that, the deal was respiratory therapy. So we've got those two programs going in. Now recently, for the past year and a half, there's a private school in the area that is well supported by each of our counties, and we are now building a math and science lab for them. So if you ever want to come, that's a connection. But it's to attract young people.
That's very good.
Can I answer?
Sure.
We have several employees in our facility that have been there 50 plus years, 40 plus years, and they all started from a work study program at 16. So they've advanced in their careers, they've gone and got certificates in PIMS and coding and billing. You know, they thought they wanted to be a nurse, and maybe it wasn't for them after they actually got in there and saw what nursing was. So we encourage students at least 16 and above to apply and to work shadow and do internships.
You know, again, the data indicate that this generation will have 7 jobs before they're 30. And so changing that trajectory is swimming upstream, and we got to figure it out. Okay, we have another question down here.
Can you add to that 15-year-old? I'm a work-based unemployment as well, and Bainbridge has taken one of my kids from Grady County a couple of years ago. Where do they start at 15 in the hospital?
In Bainbridge, it's 16 because typically the students have to drive from the high school and they have to have at least a learner's license or a permanent driver's license. But at 15, they are eligible to shadow. So they could follow a doctor over the summer or shadow a nurse or a respiratory therapist. But as far as our youth apprenticeship program goes, it's 16.
Okay, when you say shadow, is that like an internship? Can they go through the workplace or a job shadow day?
It's like a job shadow. They follow the doctor from patient to patient, but they don't do anything hands-on. No hands-on.
All right, so we're looking at when they're 16, you were able to take them.
Right, we start in the 11th grade.
Because you took one of mine several years ago, so thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question to piggyback off of that. So when I was 13, many years ago, I was a candy striper. So it was an unpaid position, but I got in there and, you know, I made beds, took magazines, delivered flowers. When I was in that environment, it was not my calling. I'm not in healthcare. But do you have those programs available where students can come in that early and just volunteer as a candy striper?
Thank you for asking that question. We were just talking about that before the program started. We want to implement a program like that. I think that the candy striper has kind of gone away, but we are wanting to implement a program beginning this summer, very similar to that.
So I have a question of the audience. How many of you in here were a candy striper? I mean, it was a pretty impressive program.
How many of them are in healthcare today?
How many of you are in healthcare today? Pretty good.
How many of the candy stripers are in healthcare?
How many of the candy stripers are in healthcare?
There you go.
We have a question here.
With your internships and your job shadowing, what are your requirements of the students? Do they have to do background checks, COVID vaccines? What are your requirements, as far as that?
We perform all of the screenings like a regular employee, unless they're under 18. If they're not 18, we don't do a criminal background, but we do, if they are, we do criminal background, we do drug screenings, physicals, COVID vaccination is required, and then we do a PPD or a TB Gold. So we do all of the screenings as of a regular employee.
Any of the rest of you different?
Same for us, we do background checks too, regardless of the age. We just want to make sure that's on file. So all the same requirements as a normal department.
Okay, we have a question here.
Hi, Katie Brown, Andrew College Respiratory Therapist. Thank you, Robin Round.
You're welcome.
Question for all of you. Tuition assistance, do you offer it, and at what point in the career program do you offer that?
We do offer tuition assistance. The employee has to be accepted into the program. So we don't pay for any core, any of that, but once they are accepted into the nursing program or the respiratory therapy program, we will assist them.
If they're working at your facility?
Yes, and then there is a work requirement. Once they graduate, they return to our facility for 3 years of employment. They don't pay, it's strictly through service.
Any of the rest of you different or?
Same.
Same. Okay.
Mr. Hall, I appreciate what you said about thinking about what the next generation of workers are and kind of anticipating those needs. But I can't help but wonder that there are still also multiple generations within the workforce present day. What are you doing to foster those relationships and trying to meet the needs of all the different generations in your workforce?
Great question.
Okay, so we've got, we provide all kinds of services to our existing employees, which would include things like even financial assistance, mental health assistance for individuals that are really just burnt out or are stressed out because of a bad work-home life experience, perhaps. The daycare, obviously, like I said, that started 3 years ago. At least in terms of a thought process, I attempted it and said, nah, I'm just not going to do it just yet. But clearly, our existing employees can use that. Having a great relationship with your staff, letting them know that they're appreciated, onboarding them really well, and then following up to make sure that their experience is what they expected, not just what you expect as the employer, but is it what they expect? Is there something more that we can do for them? I think it's absolutely critically important. You know, and just maybe 2 weeks ago, I had, you know, kind of a cathartic moment and realized that there were certain things that I was doing incorrectly, or more that I could do as a CEO to be more engaged with our employees. And you know, you've got to admit your strengths and your weaknesses and stay connected. If you want retention, you've got to be engaged with your employees and provide them, I mean, meeting with them. Our HR department, I think, is one of the best in the state, maybe even in the country, I'm not sure. But they are certainly engaged with our employees, and at least monthly. We are doing something every month for our employees. During COVID, when we were all, this is almost 2 years ago now, when we were all struggling, which included our businesses, we partnered with businesses. We bought lunches for our employees every single week from local businesses to keep those businesses alive as much as we were. Remember when you couldn't get toilet paper or bread? Simple things like that. What did our HR department go out and do? Made sure that our employees, that simple little need was met for our staff. And it's those little things in life that matter a lot, that people do remember. Does that help you at all?
To tag along with what Robin said, you know, there are a lot of managers who always look for the younger, fresh from college. They're going to give us many years of service, and I've found at many times that's not true, because they lack the experience of working socially with other people who are different from them. And they come in with a whole set of ideals that a childhood of where you got a trophy for every little accomplishment did not set them up for real world success. So I really tend to try to hire towards the middle age and late middle age group. It has been a phenomenal success for us, for my management team, to hire people who are sometimes overlooked, because a lot of, I guess, employers think, no, they only have 4 years. 4 wonderful years, I'll take any day, over 10 years of constant turnover and failures. And we hired a compliance officer about 3.5, 4 years ago. He said, I'm going to retire in 5 years. And I said, that's fine, because I've got 5 years worth of work for you to do. It's completely overworked and overhauled everything. And there's a term called old school that you just can't replace. They come from a different, completely different work ethic entirely. And so it has added a lot of value for us. Now, we would like the younger generation to be mentored by the older. And we are doing that, even though there's been some turnover, but we have had great success with doing that.
I'm going to make one more comment, which what she said makes me realize something else, which is, you know, I have been in healthcare, Doug, hello, Doug, for a lot of years. And there was a point in time, and I, you know, about a month ago, I reflected back on this, probably in the 80s, where we went through a contraction of our workforce, like what we're seeing today. And what happened? The people who were nurses, primarily at that point in time, we didn't have a lot of mid-levels and that, but people came out of retirement because their calling was heard, and they came back out of retirement to workforce. And that helped us, which was now 40 years ago, helped us get over that huge hump. But there's a difference today, and it's called electronic health records. And they simply cannot, which is adding, again, for those of us who are old enough to recognize that. It's driven, EHR has driven physicians, and a lot of other people out of the workforce. And so the thought of getting people to come on back who may have been retired for 5 years before the electronic health record was mandated, it's too much for them, and they can't do it. I have trouble using certain apps.
Yeah, my phone keeps going off. I can't stop it.
That's why you have children. I can't turn the TV on if my son's on home, so. I think we have another question here.
A couple of you mentioned response to the COVID crisis and how you responded to your employees' needs. Toilet paper was a critical element there for a little while. For two of you particularly, in 2018, Hurricane Michael came through. Did you learn anything in your response to your workforce at that point, which has been a durable lesson for you that's helping out?
All right, so I'm going to take this one first because I have vivid, horrible memories of that. So Hurricane Michael, yeah, when it hit Bainbridge and ourselves, it was a Category 5 still. And it was absolutely devastating. Now, there was some divine intervention in that for us, though. And that was that we had just built a brand new, I think it was Unit 4 of Miller Nursing Home. And the hurricane was out there on the horizon. We were about to open up that unit, and I said, stop. No, let's not. We may need it to protect our own employees. I did not want to be the CEO like somebody during Hurricane Katrina where my workforce did not come in and take care of people. So we did something that was scathingly brilliant in my mind, which was to house our employees before the hurricane within and their families, because they're the hierarchy of needs there. So what's one of the first one as a mother that you're going to navigate to? My husband and my children. You want to protect them. So we had that fortunate, I mean, we were just very, very lucky for that. There were some other things, so that was fantastic for our employees. The one thing we did not anticipate, which was a learning lesson, and I learned it, which was that when you tell your nurses, your business office people, your respiratory therapist, whoever it is, that I'm going to hose you in place, I'm going to feed your family, I'm going to take care of you. Guess what they did? Some of them. Stay. Oh, I was fine for them to stay. But what they did is they reached out to their entire global family and brought them all in.
Everybody stand to everybody.
Oh my God, it was horrible. But we got what we needed.
We got another question.
Go ahead. You can go ahead and answer that as well.
Yeah.
Hi. Can you hold 1 second? I think she wanted to respond to him as well.
We did the same thing. We did, and not only did we have the extended family, we had people in the community who we were willing to help come in and stay. So well beyond the allotted time. The reasonable time. But we did the same thing, provided space for our employees if they needed it, and our families, and those who stayed over to help. And our illustrious CEO walked to work every day, and he was right there along with our CNO.
At least he got to go home.
I spent the night in the hospital.
One night?
2 nights.
2, try a week.
I was on the walk away from the hospital.
All right, let's take our next question.
Panel, I wanted to know, what are you doing to recruit veterans?
Good question. I'll let Angela take that one.
Robin agreed to be my mentor when I first took on the role as CEO of the hospital, and sometimes I would call her with a question. She goes, "Are you a CEO?" She threw in some colorful words. "Are you a CEO or are you a social worker?"
Well, she actually makes
A social worker is the better to be.
So we try to recruit. It's open to that. We know that they're coming from a very rigorous scheduled lifestyle, and sometimes it's hard to pull away from. I have 2 sons in the military,
So I believe that structure really sets them up for success to go into the workforce. So we are open. We are doing everything we possibly can to recruit and hire those. Sometimes it is a little bit of a learning curve for them. They don't like to, sometimes I guess, for the most part, depending on what area they served in, think outside the box a little bit. It's always black and white. So getting them to think differently is a challenge at times, but I always try to tell managers, don't give up. There are certain warning signs that, it's just not going to improve within the first 90 days, but we have to really be compassionate, understanding of the service and what they've gone through. So,
anybody else want to answer that?
No, I'll leave that one to Angela.
All right.
Anybody else have another question? We're getting Gary steps in.
Angela, you alluded to old school and the work ethics. I know 2 years ago, I think everybody on the panel commented that the biggest problem that they're facing with new employees is attendance, punctuality, and that type of work ethic. As high school educators, how can we better prepare those students to go into your workforce? Is that still the biggest problem, or has something else come up over the pandemic?
I think there are just a lot of unrealistic expectations, immediate gratification. No one wants anyone to have hurt feelings because we don't want to break spirits. And we can't tell someone they're doing something wrong because then it's going to take them back 5 steps. We as employers, and I think high school teachers, educators throughout the system, has to get used to having hard conversations with people. It's our responsibility to do that. We are not responsible for how they react to that, okay? But we have to have some very hard, direct conversations in the beginning. And it was hard for my staff coming in because I was not from Clinch County. There were some very good people who were holding positions they should have never held. But I was tasked with saving that hospital. So a lot of people have never had a direct conversation. They never had issues addressed for years. So I think preparing high school students to understand that employers don't owe you anything really above minimum wage, they need to understand that. And they need to go in with the idea of, how can I prove to you that I'm going to deserve that bonus in a year? How can I shine? Because now, really, within a smaller hospital, you have a higher chance of being promoted to a management position than you do a larger tertiary facility very quickly. And we handpick those most of the time from inside because of their work ethic. So I think you just have to have some very hard, realistic, real conversations with students.
And I think that's excellent. You covered that very well. It is definitely an I approach that we're seeing with the younger generation coming in. Well, why don't I get that? This is what I have to do. This is what I will do. I really like that one. But healthcare is a team approach. It is absolutely walking hand in hand with your coworker to take care of that patient or to help the ones that are coming to us for help. So Angela's right, that expectation's just, it really needs to be said. You earn what you get, and when you earn it, you get it. But you don't come in at the top of the food chain, and you don't come in getting the perks or the accolades that some of the older or harder, some of them are even harder workers. I mean, some just come in and think because they show up, they deserve things. And they're not all like that, but we're seeing more and more of that.
I'm going to
Let me say one thing.
Okay.
One of the things, students today are, they're just a little bit different. The generation is totally different. Here's the difference in healthcare versus many other industries, is that you don't get a second chance at a wrong medication on a person. There is no, oh, I misread it, or I didn't see it, because oftentimes that results in death. You don't get not to turn a resident that's laying in a bed, because if you don't, because you were busy, or hey, I had to go to lunch, or I'm working on this, answering phone calls, because that person gets a wound. In healthcare, there are immediate consequences to omissions, negligence, and I hate using that word, don't say it again, please. But there are consequences that you, oftentimes in other industries, you can make a mistake and you can fix it, but oftentimes in healthcare you cannot. And young people, some, I don't know why they don't understand that, but certainly if you can, as educators, help change some of that culture.
Thank you. I'm going to have to stop you now because we have a tight schedule. But please join me in thanking our panel. And I believe that we have a 10-minute break.
My name is Jill Howard McIntyre. I work for Southwell here in Tipton. I've been a nurse for 20 years. My nursing journey, orthopedics. I worked there for 6 years. I worked IT for 12 years. And now I am the Director of Diversity, Inclusion, and Wellness at our organization. I heard a lot of wonderful stories in the first half. I do want to tell you about my story into healthcare. I am that candy striper. I'm also that waitress at Red Lobster that opened the store in 1995. I'm also the drive-through worker at Burger King that worked drive-through. I'm also that 19-year-old single mom that delivered in the hospital that I work in. So even though I have the role that I have now, I had a journey getting here. I can tell you that I started my career at Moultrie Tech. I think it's now Southern Regional. So that is my background. Why did I attend that school? It was affordable. I was also a recipient of the WIA program that assisted me through school. Once I completed LPN school, I started my career at Tip Regional at the age of 23. I was that new nurse out of technical school. I asked my charge nurse a lot of questions. Her answer was always, Jill, look it up. That trained me to not just accept something, but also to make sure I look it up. I can tell you the organization that I work for, when I heard about tuition reimbursement, that's very important. I am a recipient, 3-time recipient of tuition reimbursement at our organization. Like I said, I started out as an LPN. Our organization paid for me my associate's degree, bachelor's degree, and master's degree. So do I tout our organization? Yes, I do. It's not something that we just talk about on paper. It's something that I am a recipient of, and I also make sure I let all of our new orientees know that as well. So no matter what role they're in, when they enter our organization, they have an opportunity to advance, and that's something that I heard earlier with some of the other CEOs and HR directors that were speaking. Why did I become a nurse? Always knew I wanted to be a nurse. My mom was a nurse. She got me into candy striping. A lot of my friends was like, "You're working for free?" And I was like, well, my mama told me I had to do it, so that's what I did. I really enjoyed reading to our patients as a candy striper. I can tell you those programs, don't overlook kids. I was that kid. I'm working with a lot of nurses, a lot of people in our organization that at 8 years old, I was peeping over the counter at the nurse's station. Okay, I work those individuals. I'm also working with a nurse that delivered me when I was little, that delivered my baby and delivered my grandbaby. So we're an organization that is really family strong. Again, I tout it because it's near and dear to me. I don't think I have anything else to say. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. As you can tell, I have a very loud voice. My name is Will Riggins. I am the current ER tech at Phoebe, and my story probably nowhere near as good as hers. But I've been working for Phoebe for about 5 years, going on 6 years, and my very first job at Phoebe was actually cleaning floors. Doorknobs, handrails, chairs, all that stuff. Actually, it was just a temp service. I was actually not a real employee. But I had a lot of encouragement from different nurses in Phoebe that helped me to get to where I am now. Actually, right after I became, EMS, I went into central transport, just transporting patients all over the hospital. And one of the nurses had really encouraged me into getting my CNA license. She said, "Hey, Will, you ever want to become a CNA?" I said, "Yeah, how do I do that?" Well, she actually showed me some areas that would help me out. And the area I went to get my CNA was called New Beginnings. And while I was doing central transport, I was trying to get my CNA license. And after I got my CNA license, I ended up as the emergency room tech at North. And one of the nurses that I will always appreciate, Nurse David, taught me everything that I needed. I knew absolutely nothing about healthcare or taking care of patients. I was like, oh my God, what did I just get myself into? But through him, he actually really encouraged me onto how to become a better tech. He told me how to straight stick, IVs, how to take watch patient ulcers, all of that good stuff. And I will always appreciate him for that. And he actually, after that, encouraged me in becoming a nurse. Right now, I'm also a nursing student at ASU. And currently, we just had our test yesterday at WorkSource. Fluid and electrolytes is hard. But my next step is actually becoming an extern at Phoebe, because I still plan to work for Phoebe for the next coming years. Because as I said before, the people in the ER are like family to me. We have been through a lot. And as I said before, there's not a lot of workers like that are from local there, and I still plan on supporting them for a long time coming. Just gotta get through school first. But yeah, and hopefully y'all will hear from me soon. Thanks, y'all.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Lisa Stevens, and I currently hold the title of Dean of Academic Affairs for the Business and Healthcare Technology Division at Albany Technical College. And I also moonlight some at Phoebe Putnam Memorial Hospital as an MRI technologist part-time. So I'll just be real raw with it. I'm one of those students that did not get it right the first time. The second time, the third time, or the fourth, probably around the fifth time is when I finally got there. And it's interesting that I'm now in academia and in this educational environment for me, because I never wanted to go into education. Why? Because my mom and dad were both educators. Not only were they educators, but they're also educators at the schools that I went to. My mom was at the elementary school. She was a special needs instructor that taught learning disabled students. And my dad was at the middle school. So I was so excited when I got to high school, because I was finally at a school where I was not with my parents. And then my mom got promoted to my guidance counselor. And my dad got promoted to my 9th grade English teacher. Okay, so education was out for Lisa. In 9th grade, I decided to go or pursue that college preparatory dual kind of high school diploma at the time, where you could take your electives in both, you could do the core classes for college preparatory, and then the vocational classes to earn a vocational seal as well. It was never ingrained in me that vocational education was an option. You were going to college prep. It was something that my parents drilled in me, because as educators, it provided them with a very sustainable lifestyle. They were able to provide a great life for their family, their children. They had their 3 kids, 2.5 vehicles, house, pension, and that was the goal, right? And so it was great that I could get this vocational seal, because it enhanced my skill set. It looked great on a resume. But Lisa, you're going to a 4-year college. And so I pursued the business side of it, and as well as the health occupation side. So I did 4 years of business classes, and 4 years of health occupations. I say all that to say I finished all 4 years both, got really involved in FBLA because we didn't have a HOSA chapter, unfortunately. We had Skills USA, and became a national officer in FBLA. So business won, it sold me. And I went on to attend a summer camp with the Georgia Society of CPAs that they actually held at UGA. And we had the top 5 accounting firms at the time, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, Deloitte & Touche, and it's one more I can't remember, Arthur Anderson, which no one says that name anymore. But it was that experience that exposed me to the business world, and I knew I wanted to be an accountant. Okay, there's a quote that always sticks with me, is that service is the rent that we pay to live here on earth. And with that being said, service was always ingrained in me. I was that kid that was in every volunteer opportunity that my mom could put me in. And yeah, it was just ingrained in us to do that. And so when I pursued accounting, the private firms never really attracted me because there was this thing called managerial accounting that was very subjective, that I thought was sometimes could be unethical. And so my goal was to go work for the SEC and focus on white collar crimes. In addition to that, I also shadowed at Phoebe because I did graduate with that CNA certificate because I was pursuing that dual high school diploma. And Phoebe actually offered work-based learning opportunities for the healthcare students, and I was able to shadow there. And my first shadowing experience in healthcare was at a wound care clinic at Phoebe. Couldn't do it. Nursing was out for Lisa. Fast forward, went to Mercer, pursued the MAPS program there because I wanted to become a CPA. But I'm from that generation that wanted immediate gratification, was recruited by Honey McCam to come work as a sales rep. And I stayed in retail between Honey McCam and Victoria's Secret stores for the next 4 to 5 years until the economic recession of 2008 hit. Didn't have a degree, didn't have a skill, and needed to do something different. And so I went back to school, enrolled at CGTC in Macon, Georgia, got my X-ray associate degree, went back and finished CT and MRI because it was an affordable option, also allowed me to complete the core as I pursued my bachelor's at Emory University because I knew I wanted to teach. So I did. I got a degree in medical imaging education from their school of medicine there. But I didn't leave my business roots completely and went on back to Mercer to finish my MBA there. So that's kind of my story and how I got here.
My name is Wendy Shiver. I've been a nurse for 26 years, and it's kind of interesting to see what all backgrounds that even just us 4 come from. So if you included all of us 175, that would definitely be a different background where you're coming from. I'm from Ocilla, so I'm definitely local. I chose to go to ABAC for my associate's degree, and I loved it. I didn't come from really an academic family, so that going to college or leaving here and going to UGA, oh, it's exciting and it's going to Athens, that was not my background, that was not how my family was instilled. But going to getting a job and getting an education, that was instilled, from my family at a young age. My father never graduated from high school. He had to quit because back in those times he had to quit to work for his family, and provide income. And that's how things were then now compared to how our young children are now that we talked about in school. But my father went on without a college education, without any other secondary education. And by the time my father retired, and really earlier on before he retired, he made a 6-figure income. So I am a true believer that education is very important and going on to school, but maybe sometimes times are reverting back, and sometimes that's just not meant for everyone. So me going to college, even to ABAC, was a huge step. I was the only one out of 4 children to graduate from college in my immediate family, so that was a huge thing. I later went on and got my bachelor's degree from Thomas University in Thomasville, but not for years later. I've worked for several entities around here. I'm currently in the CNO at Dormany Medical Center, And I have worked 14 years for TIP Regional Medical Center. I started out at one of the nursing homes in Ocilla. That was my first nursing job. I worked there while I was going to nursing school. I worked at a nursing home in Ashburn. So I've done a multitude of things as a nurse, and I have to say that I think this is great, first of all, for all of us to get together, because I've worked for so many different of these organizations, and we kind of some days look at each other as, oh, that's our competitor, or down the road, or whatever. And I have to say, I haven't worked for one bad entity locally yet. So I look at it that, well, that's just our peers. You know, we're all in this together, and we're all trying to do the same thing. But why I became a nurse, we had a family friend that babysat me as a kid, and her daughter was in nursing school. And so when I would get off the school bus and I was there, I would see her studying, and she would have all of her, you know, things laid out, and then when she would go to clinicals and she would dress, and I just kind of felt that was so exciting. And then as I got a little bit older and she graduated from school, and I would see her go into her night shift and she was dressed in her all whites, I would tell you that is something I will never forget. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I mean, I was so intrigued by her. And then when she would come home, and you know, not against HIPAA giving anybody's names, but I would hear those stories of what went on with a patient, how they took care of them. And I was so intrigued at a young age. I just became so enthralled with what she was doing and how she looked and what things she was accomplishing, that kind of instilled. But I was still at such a young age that I just didn't every day or every year say that's what I want to do. But I can tell you, as I got older and my grandparents had a farm and a restaurant, and I cropped tobacco, and I harvested watermelons, and I worked as a waitress free of charge most of the time. I can tell you at a young age, I said, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. So as I kind of pursued on, and I actually, you know, graduated from high school, I kind of knew then that that's what I wanted to do. And I can tell you, it's not just for some nurses. Some have a story. Yes, that's what I wanted to do forever. But definitely taking care of people was definitely what I wanted to do. But not even just for nurses, but everybody in healthcare. I think a lot of it is the stories that we have, that what keeps us in and keeps us going. And I mean, I can tell you out of 26 years, I have a lot of stories. But it is those stories that keeps us going and keeps us, you know, striving and staying in this healthcare industry. I have taken care of 2 grandparents in a nursing home, and that was early on in my nursing career. And I realized then, this is why I became a nurse, because I was able to take care of 2 of my grandparents at that very same nursing home. Then whenever I later came to Tipton, I worked for one of the physicians over here for several years in his practice. And being from Ocilla, you know people from Tipton, Douglas, Fitzgerald, you know everyone in the county of Irwin County. And we would have patients coming in that was locally, and they would know me and we would chat, and he finally asked me one day, do you know everybody? I'm like, I come from a county with 2 red lights. Yes, I know most of these people. And it's good to have that feeling. Even when I worked at Tipton, you know, when I worked on the floor, you took care of people that you know. Even being at Dormany now in Fitzgerald, I take care of people that I know. And it is good to have that feeling that those people can actually depend on you too. There is a trust when you're taking care of local people in rural hospitals. It is easy for these young people to see the stars. Oh, I want to go to, you know, these larger schools. I want to go to work in Macon, or I want to go to work at some big hospital in Atlanta. And now all these agency nurses, people want to take off, they want to go to Texas. There is some good in that, you know, that we can't sit back and deter some of these people. Everybody has their own goal. But it is such a good feeling to stay where you are locally and continue to care for those people. And each one of these stories, you know, I've had a man that I took care of since I've been at Dormany, paralyzed from the neck down. And he did recover, thank goodness. But whenever I went to look at him, because I was involved with our swing bed program we had, he was nonverbal, could not move. Pointed, all he could do was move his fingers and pointed to letters that they had an alphabet there, and his nonverbal words to me was, help me. That is why I became a nurse, was to help people. And I can tell you, we took that young man in, and 3 months later, he walked out the door to get in his car with his parents and to go home. That is why a lot of us go into healthcare and why we stay there. So I would encourage any young person, it's not just nursing, it's all entities across the board, in a hospital or in a healthcare facility, down from the person that cleans the floors and cleans those doorknobs up to the physician. There is a lot of different aspects that make up the whole healthcare system. So for me, it might have started out as just in treatment with a white uniform and somebody telling their stories, but that in turn became my life today. And I can say, and one of my coworkers is here to verify this, that I'm so intrigued with that since I've been at Dormany, I dress in that white uniform every nurse's week of the year in our local hospital. I wear my cap and I wear that, thank goodness, that's a side note, I'm wearing the same dress that I graduated nursing school in. And that is an accomplishment that I can say that I definitely am very proud of. But it started out as an intriguement, but that has become my life today, just like these other people. So I would encourage any young person and be interested in partnering with these schools to get them intrigued to go into healthcare. Thank you.
Okay, this is a great job. So we're going to what questions do y'all have? Raise your hand and I will bring you the mic. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we've got two of you who are nurses. My question is, are you still, Ms. Stevens, are you still practicing as a nurse?
Yes.
Okay, then
yes.
stop there.
Okay.
So, what made you leave nursing? Why did you leave? If that was your calling, what led you to leave it so that we can know what else can we do to keep someone who's passionate like you are about hands-on, about taking care of people, about healing? What could we have done as an industry to keep you in your role that you were in?
Well, first of all, I'll say that I've never left nursing. I have, when I moved over to IT, and the only reason why I started nursing, we documented on paper, and I always tell my mom she started when they were on stone, but it was on paper. They needed someone to help educate nurses on how to document in the computer system, just to tell you about my journey. And then that kind of became my role as far as educating nurses and our clinical staff on the computer system. So that's what kind of moved me away from the bedside into informatics in that particular role. But I always picked up shifts to come work at the bedside. I can tell you, I'm always going to be that nurse, and I can always rotate between what I do now and as far as bedside nursing. My reason for leaving the bedside, I won't say necessarily leaving because I still go pick up shifts even now. It was for advancement. I was a charge nurse when I worked before, but I wanted some advancement, but I also want to stay close to the bedside. But I think for me it was more for advancement, but I don't want to say I'm never not a nurse because I'm a nurse first and then I'm the director of diversity, wellness, inclusion, but I always will be a nurse first.
I want to thank you for still continuing to do bedside nursing because we just, you've got a talent and a skill and you've got to continue to use it. And that's something that I encourage our nurses to continue to do. So thank you.
Well, my HR team is out, and they know that I am a strong advocate no matter, even when I went to the IT department, and I may hear sometimes that scrubs are not professional. Nurses are professional people, scrubs are professional, and I've always, no matter where you go, if you have RN, whatever else, LPN behind your name, you're a nurse first, and then whatever else role you have. So that's just my strong feeling about that.
I've got a question. So, since we implement the federal program of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, so how many of you during your education have used different resources such as WIOA to fund your education?
If I can just talk about that, that was one of the most valuable relationships I've had, and that's actually how Melly and I connected. So when I was at CGTC, they had the actual, I don't know the role, I call him everything. His name is Mr. James Johnson out of Macon. He was housed at the Labor, Department of Labor. But we still keep in touch to this day. Anytime I need a recommendation letter, I call Mr. Johnson. He'll call from time to time to check on me. So it wasn't something that I just utilized in school as some financial support. He was also a great level of human and emotional support throughout that process because, you know, the academic journey in healthcare, as you mentioned, is a struggle with all the non-academic issues that we face. I, too, was a single parent. I was going back to school unemployed, so I didn't have a lot of financial resources. But through those programs and those opportunities, they were able to provide additional support, you know, financially and emotionally throughout that process. So yes, I'm a very huge advocate for WIOA.
Question?
Thank you. Ms. Shire, thank you for acknowledging the fact that people, healthcare providers who are traveling now are making their own decisions, and they're entitled to those decisions no matter how much it's creating stress or strain on the system. What is it that we as healthcare entities and educators can do to create a welcoming space for them when they get tired of that, when they run out? We see a lot of those folks right now who traveled for a year and a half. They're just on the sidelines right now. How do we welcome them back in?
We've kind of dealt with that already at Dormany. You know, as probably every facility, if you're a healthcare facility in here, I guarantee you there's not a facility in here that did not experience and some of their staff leaving and going to work with the agency. So, you know, none of us is immune to this problem. But we've already had one or two of our nurses that they're kind of tired of traveling a long ways away. We had some of ours that went to Texas on those big compensation plans. We had one to go to North Dakota for a while. That had been nurses in our facility long term. These were not just nurses that had worked for us for 1 to 2 years and they're still new to us. These were long-term nurses that had been there a long time. I have encouraged them to come back because they have come back home. Their home is still our local towns. You know, that's where their families live. So in my experience, what we have done is stay in connection with those nurses. That when you're tired, you know, and you're ready to come home and be with your family for a while, you know, we're all going to have job openings. That is not going away anytime soon. You know, I would appreciate you still, you know, giving us some time. Some of ours stay PRN with our facility, and when they come home, we stay in close contact, constant communication with them. You know, if you're going to be at home, you know, do you want to pick up some shifts? And I have to say I'm grateful for the few that we have done that. They have been just as committed to us as well because they were long-term nurses with us. And they stay in contact with us too. Hey, I'm coming home. I'm going to be at home for this many weeks. Can I pick up some PRN shifts? So we've kind of started there. And then we had one of ours that decided, okay, he had traveled for a while, was getting a little tired, wanted to come back and be with his family for a while. So I sat down and brought him in and face-to-face because even though I am still, you know, middle age, I don't do a lot of texting. You know, I am still old school, as the first panel said, that I like face-to-face communication or at least talking on the phone. I just feel that I'm old school and that is the way it needs to be done. That's very professional. So I brought him in and we had a face-to-face conversation and I said, okay, tell me how many weeks you're going to be at home. And this is what I have available. Will you make this commitment to me, you know, with the understanding that you understand we are small rural hospitals. We cannot compete with that money than those salaries that you were making out there. And, you know, as long as we try to have a communication and an understanding of what we can do and what they can do for us, I feel like if we keep that connection, that when a lot of that dies down, I'm hoping if it does, that some of them will float back to us. So we just try to stay really close-knit with ours. And I try very hard, since I've been in this position, to allow those people to do that without raising any judgment upon them. I've been very verbal about that in my facility. You know, there should be no judgment for somebody choosing a life choice. You know, we have one of ours worked in our facility for years, had always wanted to do agency nursing, excellent nurse, and never did because of life circumstances, what somebody mentioned earlier. Was married, had children were small, very active in school, and wanted to be active in their life. But now those children are graduated from high school, and so now was the opportunity for that person to do something that they had wanted. You know, so, okay, go try it, because, you know, if you don't do it now, you will never do it. So I think us being supportive of those people too, and not passing judgment on them, will get them to some time when they're tired of that to float back to our communities and these smaller hospitals.
Hi, I have a question for those who have been at your facility for years, and I think, Will, you said you want to go back and work at Phoebe. What culture has been created to where you can't be deterred from working or being lured to go into work in another facility? Because that's very important for us, is to create a culture where people feel like, this is a place I want to be for several years, and this is a place where I can plant roots. So can you speak on the culture or the environment that has helped you make that decision to stay where you're at?
I would say the culture that helped me to develop this loyalty to Phoebe is the people that were at North Campus. I was actually the tech at North Campus before I went to Maine, and the people that I met there encouraged me and, you know, gave me a lot of love and hope and, how should I say, encouragement to just keep going forward. They helped me to build up to who I am. And I can feel like that facility will give me everything I need to become a great nurse. Like the people that I've met there, every single person I've met at Phoebe has given me the courage to keep moving forward. Actually, they helped me get to the first step, because the hardest step for any student, for any person, is that very first step. And that's why I really appreciate that nurse from 3A that said, Will, just go for it. Just go for it. That was the biggest help to me to get to where I am today. And that loyalty that you can show to your employees, just the small people, even the EMS people, will help them to stay with you for a longer time. As she said before, don't discriminate because they are lower than you or you're higher than them. Show them like you're a family. Because the people at the emergency room showed me that I was family. That I was a part of them, that this is us versus the world, and we will help you with anything that you need to do. So, thank you.
I want to chime in and off of what he said to answer the question, because I think a couple of you that was on the panel beforehand made either reference to this to your question as far as them staying and keeping them devoted to that facility. Looking at them as individuals and what they want now, because times have changed. You mentioned, that, people want things differently now. They want that choice of family life and that sort of thing. And exactly what he is saying, that knowing that somebody has your support and they are supportive of you and they're right there and their loyalty. I think a big word for that is we really have to look at the culture of our people. I have said that many times in this position and before I even became the CNO and dealing with different positions that I've been in, when I've been discussing patients, and I've been talking with other people or either people in higher up positions than me, and we're talking about patients, and I'm like, no, that's not going to work here, because you have to understand the culture of our people. Culture meaning that we are very small rural areas. We can't do the same thing somebody in New York City does because their culture of people are different. Those people want different things. We have to look at our communities, what works for us. And I think that same basic principle goes back to our employees and the culture that we create for them. We need to look at what they want, how these people are raised, the culture of our hospitals. So I think incorporating that and taking a good look and getting invested in our people will keep them staying at these hospitals rather than going somewhere else.
Okay, I think we've got time for one, maybe two more questions. Any more?
Thank you. And I apologize if I mispronounced your last name, Ms. McIntyre. Sorry.
McIntyre, one head on my husband. I was John Jones, so there's
Ms. McIntyre, I apologize, but I really appreciate you saying or speaking on how you're still a nurse, even though you might be in a different branch of this work. And I was really curious by the work that you do as Diversity, Inclusion, and Wellness Director. How does providing, particularly in our healthcare landscape, we know that providing equitable and accessible healthcare to marginalized and diverse populations is still a pressing issue in our region. So I'm really curious about the work that you do at TIFT and how that translates from training your employees in that going down to that bedside manner. How does, that inclusion and diversity and wellness training that that approach, how does that translate to the care that we're providing to our patients?
Well, I'll first be honest. I took on the role about 2 years ago. I added it to those other duties as assigned roles. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to lead our organization. I can tell you it's been a journey for us because a lot of things that's been created has been created for years. As far as our education, our journey, what I thought was very important is that we define diversity, equity, inclusion. We get those definitions down for our particular organization. I used that opportunity to also, for all new hires, have that education for all of our new hires. Currently, we meet quarterly with leaders and we have education. So currently for our organization, it's baby steps. It's not something that we're going to get to overnight. It's going to be a marathon for us. Fortunately, my husband is also, he works in our community. He owns a barbershop. So he has an ear to our community and to what goes on there. So what we're trying to do is bridge the gap between healthcare and also what's in our community. We also have a mobile clinic that we use to make healthcare more accessible. We used it to not only provide healthcare, but also vaccination. We go to the community as well. So there's a lot of opportunities that we have. I won't say that we've perfected everything. I won't sit here and say, oh, we have it all together, because it's a journey for our organization. But I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to lead us forward for that, because I am a person of our community. Been in our community for 40-something years. I won't say because I'll reveal my age, but I've been out in our community. So I don't know if I answered your question, but.
Well, if those stories don't inspire you, I don't know what will. Thank you so much for giving your insight and your stories. So our next portion is going to be into our breakout rooms. The purpose of that is you've had an opportunity to sit here and hear from employers and employees, but now's the time where we're going to hear from you. So this will give you small roundtable time where you can talk, answer some questions, give your insight, give your input, and we're going to take that information as data and we'll share it with all of you.
We're going to be opening with a section that's called Innovation Highlights. And I'm honored to be the opening act for that, with this wonderful group of leaders that have really come up with some fantastic ways to build the healthcare pipeline and help support us in our communities here in Georgia. So for those that you don't know me, I'm Lisa Carhuff. I'm the Director of Program Development at Hometown Health. And if you're not familiar with Hometown Health, you have, hopefully most of you got a course catalog, but we're an organization, a network of rural hospitals and healthcare providers and other folks in the state of Georgia that are focused on not only helping our rural hospitals survive, but to thrive. And we're an education organization. So you can see on our banner over here, and again, if you didn't get the booklet, it's hthu.net. We have over 700 courses to support not only employees in our hospitals and their growth and their development as they can go through core education related to their discipline, or they can go through leadership training. There's so many different areas in which they can focus. What I want to talk to you all about today is some online resources that we have that are specific to our contract that we have with the Georgia Department of Education. So we're thrilled to have that partnership, in that some of you may be schools that have gone through the Health Science Education Industry Certification. Are there any in the house that's gathered? No? Well, here's a plug for that. I want you to consider, if you're a health science educator, is applying to become industry certified. It's an awesome program where it really helps you take that deeper dive and looking at your role and your curriculum and getting that information out to your partners in your community and really build some excellence into your program. So we support that. And part of that program is online education that's free to those that are in the program. So not only do the teachers have access to training, but they also have it for their students as well. And the other piece of it is partnership. So if you're looking at, like we had on these panels, these wonderful professionals that want to work with the schools and schools that want to work with hospitals and other healthcare providers, we have a 12-hour CEU that you can pick and choose and find different aspects of what does it mean legally to have students in your hospital, looking at compliance. And this is all free to you. You can have this at no cost, and it's on our website. It's down at the bottom. Every one of you has this. But I encourage you to look at that and continue to look for opportunities to partner with the programs in your community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the real stars of the program, which are our innovators. And so the innovator that I want to open with is Tracy Super. So y'all welcome Tracy from Phoebe.
Welcome back from lunch. I promise I won't put you to sleep. I only have 2 hours, so I'm just kidding. Kidding. I could talk for 2 hours though about what I want to share with you today. My name is Dr. Tracy Suber, and I'm Vice President of Education for Phoebe Health System. So I am honored. There's so many things that I could really tell you about in terms of what we're doing at Phoebe. I think everybody probably knows where we are. You know, we're here in Southwest Georgia too. We have a very large service area, about 800,000 in terms of population, 42 counties. We have a big economic impact. Like all of the things that we've been talking about today, we certainly struggle with the contract labor cost. I kind of wanted only have 10 minutes, so I did want to share some numbers, though, to put some things into perspective a little bit, to kind of tell you a little bit about how much money that we've been spending on contract labor. So we've been in a nursing shortage, a shortage of respiratory therapists, a shortage of CNAs. This is not anything new. Unfortunately, I think we probably could have done a better job starting earlier, but COVID certainly has launched that into, you know, a whole different element, really. Before COVID, in 2019, I've got some comparisons, and I've just had the opportunity to present to the Georgia Charter Foundation yesterday on this. But we were spending contract labor costs about $3 million a month. So if you could, that was in 2019, before COVID. So fast forward to today, in 2022, 12 million a month. We're on a path this year in 2022 to spend 144. So that's kind of hard to wrap your brain around. So that's huge. And it's not just us. We're a big health system, but hospitals, across Georgia, across the country are experiencing the same thing. And when you hear that it's not sustainable, it truly is not sustainable. So what we have done is taken a very aggressive and assertive approach into how can we back up and try to work with our school partners to try to fill this need. We know that it's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse. And, it's up to us to try to build our own talent, right? So, and that's kind of what this is all about, is us partnering together to get in front of these young people early on, engage them, inspire them, motivate them, and to hopefully, you know, maybe they'll want to pursue a career in healthcare. I mean, look at Will. He's the perfect example. I mean, that is amazing. He used to clean floors. And somebody believed in him. And if we can get in front of these young people early on and, you know, help them to see that, then that, you know, is amazing and it's a testimony. And I have a similar story like that as well. And it was started in my high school health occupations with a RN who really inspired many of us. And I knew that I wanted to be a nurse because of her. And so now I have that same opportunity to kind of pour into those young people. And so I'm very passionate about it, as you could probably tell. And I know many of y'all have worked with y'all in different groups. But what I wanted to share with you is we're doing a lot of very unique things at Phoebe. But what we've done is we've met with all of our school partners and really sat at the table with them and said, you know, what do you need to be able to increase the number of students in your program? To try to help with that pipeline. And so we've had lots of really good dialogue, and we've done that with every single one of our area academic partners. And because of that, all of those partnerships, they really look unique. So what works for, you know, Albany Tech doesn't necessarily work for Albany State. What works for Albany State doesn't necessarily work for Georgia Southwestern, and so on and so forth. Because we have partnerships with all of those schools, I mean, and more that I haven't even mentioned. In fact, ABAC, Albany Tech, ASU, Andrew, Fort Valley State, which is going to be a new program, and I know that's kind of a stretch upward, but we felt like that's what we needed to do. Georgia Southwestern, 4C, and Lake County High School. And so, and there's not really anything that's not been off the table for us, but we've gone out and we've engaged with these institutions and tried to find out what we could do to grow that pipeline and that talent. And so every one of those partnerships is unique. But the one I wanted to share today is one with 4C, which is the College and Career Academy. And this really came out of a need to try to get more CNAs. And because we don't just need nurses, we need CNAs, we need that assistive personnel too. They're a very, very important part of our team. And so what we did is we went out to them and we said, how can you help us with this? And they quickly used their healthcare track, and we started working on a plan. And so what the plan looks like with 4C is we actually go out in 8th grade, to the 8th grade, they're our target, and tell them about this opportunity in the healthcare track at 4C Academy. And they'll take those health occupation classes, as you all have mentioned, there at 4C Academy or at their home school, depending on where it's offered. And they'll do that in 9th and 10th grade, and then in 11th grade, they'll get their CNA. And just as many of you have shared today, we had some dialogue over lunch. All of these young people want to be surgeons. They want to be the CEO. They want to be the president. Nobody wants to be a nurse, and they certainly don't want to be a CNA. That's what we're dealing with. And so we've been real creative. We've developed some career pathways with some very appealing and visual graphics to show these individuals that you can start here and end here. And when you get here and you are that surgeon or that CEO, you'll be a better surgeon or CEO because you started as a CNA. And we really are having those conversations and letting them know that every place has a starting point, and that's okay. They don't have to stay there forever. But what we're seeing with these young kids is when you have those conversations, they become a little bit more open. And with the work-based learning programs, those students that are seniors that are coming into our facility, particularly with Lake County High School and that partnership, we're seeing that by the time they're at the end of that experience, they're like, I think I want to go to nursing school. And my Phoebe family, back there, y'all raise y'all's hands. Yeah. So they've been a huge part of this partnership as well. But that's really exciting. So back to CNAs though. So they'll get their CNA during their 11th grade year. And then in their 12th grade year, this is the really cool part, the ones that have come in and they are good and 4C's vetted it, we've interviewed them, we think that they're good candidates, they're going to come in and participate in a paid internship program with us. And so what we did, Phoebe has invested in 4C Foundation, through a financial donation. And then 4C will be paying these students a stipend from their foundation. And there'll be 20 students in the program, and the goal is during their senior year, they'll be working for us, being paid by 4C, having that experience, gaining that knowledge, those skill sets, and then we're going to try to recruit them. That's our goal. We want to recruit them when they turn 18, because that's when we can hire them into our health system. So they'll come in hopefully as a CNA and work for us, and then hopefully for us, we'll be able to pay for them to go back to be a nurse, to be a respiratory therapist, to be a pharmacist. I mean, there's so many areas that we need those jobs, and so we'll be able to grow them into those roles. And so that's the very unique partnership that we have going on right now. Where are we now? It just started this semester, so those students will be coming in April, right, Melanie? In April to be in the hospital with us. So we have our own challenges that we're going to have to work through, obviously. And one of those things is we want to make sure those kids have a good experience, right? And right now in healthcare with COVID and burnout and just the staff are tired, it's been challenging the last 2 years, no doubt. And so, you know, some of our challenges we worry a little bit about is we want to make sure that they have a really good experience when they're there. And so we're trying to be very strategic about where we place them, putting them with leaders and in areas where they're going to be well supported and loved on, like what Will was talking about, because that culture is going to be really, really important. So I'm going to pause there. I've got like 2 minutes left, and I really want to give y'all an opportunity. We'll get through the panel, and maybe there'll be some questions after that. I could go on and on and on about the different partnerships that we have and the uniqueness of each one, but I think this one with 4C Academy is really exciting, and we're really looking forward to this. And I think the other thing I would say is I feel really blessed and fortunate to be a part of a health system that has been very progressive. And obviously we're spending a lot of money investing in these programs, but you know, and we don't see that right now. We won't see it for 4 to 6 to 8 years down the road, but this problem's not going away. We're going to have to take a different approach to this, and I really believe that we'll see something through the work that we're doing, you know, in the long run. So that's it. Thank you very much.
So I'm Laura Calhoun. I am the Executive Director of SWEGA AHEC, the Southwest Georgia Area Health Education Center. Denise Cornegay, who was the moderator for the first panel, is over the whole statewide AHEC network, and I've got one of my coworkers here. She's a parallel worker. She's a Center Director of the Magnolia Coastlands AHEC. So I am going to take a 2-minute plug on AHEC because all too often people don't know who we are, don't know what we do. So we are an area health education center. We are a nonprofit. We're a national organization, and the mission is to grow the healthcare workforce for rural and underserved areas. So that's why we are here and love being a part of something like this. Within the state of Georgia, there are 6 AHECs, so we cover all 159 counties. So as an AHEC, and our mission being to grow that healthcare workforce, we do that through a pipeline process of recruiting, training, and retaining. So on the recruit side, we are out in the middle schools and high schools educating students on health careers. If y'all are familiar with the AHEC Health Careers Manual, the newest one just came out last month. You have a bookmark in front of you. If you don't have one, let us know. So anyway, our Health Careers Manual for all you teachers, parents, employers. This is a wonderful resource. It lists every health career out there. It talks about what your average salary is going to be, where you can get that education within schools in Georgia, how long it's going to take. There is a section in the back called the Health Careers Journey. As we all know, not everyone has 12 years to invest to go into medical school. They might only have 3 to 6 months after high school, and it lists all the careers that you can get with that amount of time to invest. So again, big innovation on the AHEC perspective. Not every AHEC across the state has this. It's a great resource. Please use it, please share it. So that is our recruit piece. On the train, we work with all the medical schools and allied health programs to get students to come in and work in rural areas to help find their preceptors. And our hope is that they want to come and stay in those rural areas where they're working. And then on the retained side, we do have continuing education opportunities. So that's my AHEC plug. If you don't know your AHEC, please call us. We will come to your school and do presentations. We can do HIPAA presentations as well and train people in HIPAA. So just call us, find us on the website. So, but I'm here right now to talk about innovation. And that's the reason I'm even here. And I'm going to talk about innovation more as a concept with a few specific examples. So for me, innovation is relationships. Is the cornerstone of innovation. So having followed Lisa and Tracy, I mean, those are two relationships that are very important in a lot of the innovation that the AHEC has done, programs that we have worked on together. So developing those relationships is key. And coming out and putting yourself out in a situation like this is essential, is developing those relationships, meeting new people that have similar missions, similar ideas, not necessarily the same mission. So we all have our own missions, but ours are connected. So finding those connections that we can do something different and innovate together is essential. You know, I always go to a conference like this and I hope to leave with a nugget, at least one good nugget, either a new contact, a new idea. That nugget might be, ooh, I attended that and they're not going anywhere. They're not doing any action, there's just a bunch of talking. I don't want to be a part of that one. But finding those like-minded individuals that are focused on the same thing you are, that y'all can work together and be innovative and creative and actually do something is essential. And so today, being here is a result of two of those nuggets. Being invited to participate in the WorkSource healthcare sector partnership meetings. Went to my first one, and I serve on both because I have counties in both Southwest and South, and got involved about the same time with both. And it's been fascinating to watch the two and love the fact that they're together because you've saved me so much time in multiple meetings. But those were nuggets. I mean, I came out of both of those meetings and went, okay, this is that group that can do something. And in 2019, we hosted one of these, which was exciting. And that was part of Southwest's initial meeting and goals was to set up a simulation center. Well, that's going on at Phoebe. So again, finding those right connections, those right relationships and resources that can come together and make change, that's how innovation is created. So love being a part of that. But bringing the educators and the employers together is what makes this unique. Because I think we've often been in silos, that we've got educators going, okay, this is what I need to do. I assume I know what my employers need. So I'm just gonna keep going like I always have. And then you got the employers going, yeah, I wish those students knew more about this. So bringing everybody together starts those conversations and we can start addressing some of those issues. So innovations, it's not always about something brand new and being sexy. There's great things that can be refreshed. So it doesn't have to be something brand new. I mean, set of tires, the tread starts wearing. And this Teach Academy, which is one of the innovations I'm going to talk about, is taking a concept, the tread was worn, but it was a great concept. So we are going to be hosting Teach Academy. It'll be offered in our 38 counties of Southwest Georgia first. The hope is with our partnerships with the CTAE and Georgia Department of Education is it will be offered statewide. But Teach Academy is teachers exploring and advocating for careers in health. And this is a program that AHEC put together in the early 2000s. And it was awesome, well received by the teachers. It was a 3-day workshop. It was very labor intensive. It was getting teachers out to help them understand what the attributes are of someone that might be interested in healthcare that doesn't know that they're interested in healthcare. So educating the teachers, counselors, we're talking work-based learning instructors, anybody that's around these students that can see those attributes and go, you know what, you need to think about healthcare. Well, let me put you in touch with AHEC, or go check out this manual, and promoting those health careers. So that's what the Academy is about, and it was done in a very labor-intensive way. Everyone got to go out and shadow doctors. So they went to 4 different doctors' offices. Literally, we had to transport them across Albany into all these different places. It was a logistical nightmare, but well received. But it just, because it was so labor intensive, it just kind of went by the wayside. Jump to 2000, whatever we are, 20, 22, 21 is when we started talking about this and reinstating it. And it was with innovation and the technology changes, we now have simulation centers across the state. So we are now taking the program and going to be hosting it at Phoebe in their simulation center. So no more transporting everybody across the areas, which is awesome. So we will use the simulation lab, and these teachers and counselors and work-based learning instructors will be able to go into the simulation areas. They're not going to do hands-on per se, but they will be in these rooms in groups of 4 to 5 and having the professionals come to you. And you'll get to learn more about those health careers. So we hope to expose you to as many different careers so you can understand what's out there. Because students so often think, yeah, I can't do blood, I can't be in healthcare. Well, yeah, you can. I'm that. I was a candy striper for 1 day. That was it. Done. Healthcare's not for me. Jump forward 6 years ago, I go into healthcare, but from the administrative perspective. So there's something for everybody. So that's what we want to educate people on. So again, excited about that. If you are in the 38 counties in Southwest Georgia, you will hopefully get a save the date on that. It's going to be in June. But again, there's only 50 spots. If you don't make it this first time, we'll be offering 2 more the following summer and 2 more the next summer. So again, innovation doesn't have to be cool, new, and sexy. It can be taking something that was already great and making it better, bringing it up to date. So that's one concept of innovation that I wanted to talk about. The other piece is innovation isn't always immediate. As Tracy mentioned, they're investing in an outcome that's 6 to 8 years away. But it's also taking a step forward. So often, it's a problem that it's too big. And the example I use on that is the nursing crisis that we are in. For Sewega AHEC, the mission of, one of our strategic items on our plans over since, I think, inception was deal with nursing. And I finally was like, yeah, we've got to do something. It's becoming worse, but AHEC can't solve it. So we just, as a small group of Southwest Georgia counties, 38, with the hospitals and the CEOs and the educators all came together and said, okay, what are the real problems? Where are we going wrong? Why don't we have enough students? Where are we missing them? What can we do? So we've come up with a strategic plan as to how to do that. And it's a huge, huge task, but we've broken it down into manageable pieces that we'll be able to follow through and meet. So again, innovation doesn't have to be immediate gratification. And the other piece, I would say innovation needs to be very intentional. So know what your problem is and figure out, define it, and what do I need to do to make it better. So one of the programs that we have is our Pathway to Med School program. So if you're in a rural area, Southwest Georgia, anywhere rural, chances of getting in med school are limited. A lot of times your schools don't have the AP classes that you're going to get into Georgia immediately, and you have that trajectory of being at a large university. So we knew to have students that wanted to come back to practice in Southwest Georgia, we needed to get more students from Southwest Georgia in medical school. So we developed this program, having gone to the schools. At the time there was 4 medical schools, now there's 5, and went to them and said, what do we have to do to make our students more competitive to get into medical school? And they said they need to have research experience, they need to have hands-on experience. So we developed this program 18 years ago, and it's been going on ever since. And we have 90% acceptance rate of those students that participated in the program, and these are for pre-med students, that have participated in the program and then applied to med school. They might be a sophomore, so they might not be able to apply, but once they apply, 90% of those students that are targeted from Southwest Georgia are getting into med school, which is huge. And so we're finally, the long game on that is we've had 4 of those participants come back to work in Southwest Georgia, which is ultimately our mission, is building our workforce here. So I'm going to take 1 extra minute since we have my technical glitch. And that's just kind of let's light the fire. Find your nugget here today, who you can talk to, who you connect with. And I'll share you with a little bit of a scary statistic, since everybody's been in numbers. Talking to a president of one of the universities, their nursing program for the first time in, I think, forever, has not filled their nursing seats. Think about it, that's scary. Always, never could accept enough. We've talked about expanding class sizes. Never have we had not enough seats filled. Concerned this president enough, they reached out to the students as to why they weren't accepting. I mean, they were accepted and turned it down. And there was 3 reasons. First one was, I don't want to get a vaccine. Okay, fine, you're probably not in the right health career, or in health field's probably not for you anyway. Okay. Second was, I didn't realize there were so many sick people in the hospital. Okay, good, probably not a good path for you to go down. So we're okay with those 2. The third one that is more disturbing is COVID scared me. I thought I wanted to go into healthcare, but I don't think I do anymore. And that's not just nursing. That's going to be our doctors. Those are the people that are taking care of us. So if y'all as teachers and educators don't continue to encourage health careers, we're going to be in trouble because those numbers are going to drop. So that's where innovation comes in, and that's where I challenge you to get together with your partners, talk about what the problems are, and see what y'all can do to come up with solutions. Okay? And
Good afternoon, everyone. Y'all look so energetic. Oh my God. Y'all are just having too much fun right now. Please stop and listen to me. I stand between you and the closing. So I think it'd be nice. Before I get started, I just want to say a special thanks to Miss Amy Jones for inviting me. I had the opportunity to meet Miss Jones through a coworker of mine, and we FaceTime, and let me just put a little plug here, let y'all know she keeps an immaculate kitchen. And so that's how I got here. So she's just been awesome. So if you don't know Miss Jones, you need to get to know her. She's amazing. But this has been really, really great for me. I traveled here today from Statesboro, Georgia. Yay! Yay! I underestimated how long it was going to take for me to get here. Yeah, that was a little longer than I thought. Tifton, big city. Not really. So, Great Promise Partnership. Great Promise Partnership is a public-private partnership that empowers and equips students who may be at jeopardy of not graduating from high school, complete high school while gaining real-world job skills and experience, creating a path to personal success and the workforce for the future. So that's what's written on the paper. So let me tell you what Great Promise Partnership is to me. The best job I ever had. And I'm saying that to say I've had a lot of jobs, okay? The main one that sticks out that I'm going to tell you about that connects me to this one is I was a 6th grade middle school teacher for 7 years, okay? So connecting Great Promise with education. So I'm not in healthcare, sorry, that wasn't my bad. Education was my route. And I realized after, I guess, collaborating with parents, I was a parent and then having parent-teacher conferences, I was like, this might not be the route I need to stay in. It was just a lot. So different things happen, different paths, different things I've experienced as far as jobs, and then I came across Great Promise Partnership, and I looked at the job description. I was like, oh my God, I get to work with teachers and students, and I'm not going to be in the classroom. Oh my God, where has this been all of my life, right? And then the one part that stood out was the word I don't like to use, which is at risk. So that's why I don't really say at risk, but they're in jeopardy of maybe not graduating, right? So it's my job to collaborate with work-based learning teachers over South Georgia. So if you're a work-based learning coordinator in here, I'll see you hopefully soon. And I asked them, implored to them how important it is to enroll students that's in their school that they may identify with the counselor that may not be on a pathway, that may not have a pathway in their school, who is working, who needs that job, but they also need to graduate. So with Great Promise Partnership, those students can still get credit
for working. They're just not in the pathway. They have indicators, right? Indicators, which means maybe they're homeless, unfortunately. Maybe they have to work because they are a single parent. These are things that have probably deterred them from being on a pathway. So with Great Promise Partnership, I advocate for those students to get credit so they can graduate. It's such a fulfilling feeling to be able to see these students who are working because they have to work, because their mom or their dad is depending on that income. So guess what? That job becomes a priority. So graduating, that's secondary to them. So it's my job to come in and say, hey, well, if I can help you get this high school diploma, you can get into this welding program and look how much more money you're going to be making. So I have to kind of, entice them to understand that it's important to graduate to be able to sustain the lifestyle living, but even better, based on just the fact that you have this, you're going to this factory every day with your mom, because I have a student who works with her mom, and unfortunately they are homeless, so she doesn't have a pathway, right? So I'm telling her, if we get this high school diploma, this is what we can help you do. Okay. The difference between work-based learning and Great Promise Partnership, I'm sure you're saying, well, what's the difference? There's a huge difference, right? We have something that, unfortunately, work-based learning coordinators can't do. They can't mentor. They can in their own right, but they have a big caseload, right? They have kids they have to go to job sites, they have a lot to do. Well, with Great Promise Partnership, we have a mentorship, meaning those kids need extra support. They already have a lot of dynamics going on at home or with their personal life. I make sure, I'm saying I because I'm the coordinator for South Georgia, when I get those students, I make sure that they get a mentor. Maybe their mentor is on their job, on the work site. I can find someone who's willing to work to mentor them, especially if they're in like a healthcare field, It may be someone there to mentor them. But I have a student who works at Waffle House. There's nothing wrong with working at Waffle House, I'm not saying that. But the dynamics of the people that's coming and going and working at Waffle House, there's no one there to mentor her. So it is my job to ensure that I go out to the community, if I'm in Lee County or Butts County, wherever I am, and I find those people who are in the community, I say, hey, do you mind being a mentor for this student? I go to chamber meetings, or I may go to some Rotary Club meetings. I say, hey, I gotta find people who can be mentors. That's the difference. We have extra support for those students because they need it. Those students that are a part of Great Promise Partnership need more of a cushion. And so we are able to offer that. Just to sum up everything, the innovation here is the fact that how many of you, I'm sure I'm the only one, how many of you have insecurities? I'm probably the only one. I know. Yeah, no one in here but me. Okay. So insecurities. These students that we service, or that we go after, or that I thrive to bring in, have insecurities. So being a part of Great Promise Partnership, it helps me to give them security in those ways that they may not get it at home. With the mentorship, reinforcing the encouragement, letting them know that they have someone to go to other than that young lady who works with her mom. You know, they're going to work every day together. That's hard, right? Her mom can't really give her that push that she needs because they're getting in the car, going to work. So I can give her the mentorship through someone else that would give her the push. So that's my little spiel, but I just want to leave you with this thought by Josh Shipp. He says, every kid is one caring adult away from being a success story. So think about that when you think about Great Promise Partnership. You can be that caring adult that is the completion to that student being a success story. Did I keep you too long? You're good. It's over.
So did y'all get anything out of this? I think you're really good. I do think next year we're gonna need the bigger room.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Brandon, we're gonna need more money for the bigger room.
I want to just give a shout out. Thank you to TCSG, not only for the funding to do this work, but also for coming down, Tyler and Andrea for filming this. You guys will get a link to be able to see this later and watch it. Yeah, thank you. I also want to thank our staff. They helped with registration, helped seat you. They did a lot of the behind the scenes work, and I want to say a big thank you to them. If you are on the Summit Working Committee to make this event happen, please raise your hand. This couldn't have happened without all of you, so thank you. One little plug, you heard 4 stories on here from employees, and part of the work that we're doing at WorkSource Southern is to really highlight those stories. So if you're in healthcare, which if you're in this room, you probably are, and you have a story that you'd like to share, we're going to do those recorded interviews. It'll just be me and you, but we're going to post that onto our website. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll get together and we'll highlight those stories. So the other thing is, in your bag, there is a postcard with a QR code. It doesn't work anymore. I tried to go out of my wheelhouse and become the marketing intern who made that QR code and that information, and I tried to add to it, and what I did was delete it. So our marketing intern couldn't be here today because she's a nursing student and she's in class. So we're excited about that. But you will hear from us and you'll get that opportunity. If you didn't have the opportunity to ask the questions of the employers, ask questions of the employees, or ask questions of these last 4 speakers, we're going to have an opportunity where you can reach out to them, give a comment, ask a question, ask for more resources. So please watch out for that. Let me look at my notes. And I just want to thank each of you for being here, because you took the time out because you care about South Georgia, you care about the healthcare pathways that we have, and we couldn't do any of this work without your engagement, so thank you. And that's all I got to say.